thank you for your applause. It probably means that you realize how difficult it is to take the floor with the UN label under your name after all the harsh word we heard about how the UN is falling. And the problem is that this is absolutely true. The UN is dying, and it is a big problem. And I think the title of this symposium reflects this situation. And the problem is that at the international level, the UN has been building slowly an architecture to protect and promote human rights. But right now, promoting and protecting human rights at the international level is an uphill battle, and actually the hill is getting steeper every day. Nevertheless, there are paths worth to explore through UN way of dealing with this issue of blasphemy. Before going into that, I want to thank you for the invitation. I'm very honored to be here and to take the floor in front of such a large audience. And naturally, my speech is also tailored for lawyers, since it's a law association, and I will look at concrete examples in UN practice. As regards blasphemy laws, the fact is that there are still, according to my counting, which is even more pessimistic than USCRIF, 105 states that have blasphemy legal provision. And it's not necessarily in Constitution, very often it's in penal code, but it has the same effect. And in 7 of these countries, it could lead to death penalty. In 79, it could lead to prison sentence, even long imprisonment. And there are 19 countries where you still have blasphemy provision, but they're not implemented. But I would like to warn all of us, all of you, about this dead letter law. We see a big democracy, we heard about it quite a few times already, where you see the president resuscitate, I'm sorry, too difficult for me in English, reviving statutes or acts from the 19th or even 18th century to prosecute opponents, so dead letter law remain dangerous. So blasphemy law are most of the time portrayed as arbitrating a tension between freedom of religion and belief on the one side and freedom of expression on the other side. And for me, the question there is, should the state provide religions with a special protection, a specific protection against blasphemy? And I think behind this question in legal terms is a question of individual rights, the freedom of religion and belief, and the public manifestation of these individual rights, which by definition is collective. And also, and this is an interesting question for lawyers, whether freedom of religion and belief is a freedom or a right. A freedom meaning the state should not mingle with it, you're free to do as you want. A right you can claim. And unfortunately, international law doesn't help us very much. As you probably all know, Article 18 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights is dealing with this issue, and if I read it, I quote, "Everyone shall have the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion." The right to freedom doesn't help much. And actually, the issue of blasphemy, based on Article 18, is most of the time seen as an interplay between the first paragraph, which guarantees this right of freedom, this freedom, of thought, conscience, and religion, and the third paragraph, which states freedom to manifest one's religion or belief may be subject only to such limitations as are prescribed by law and are necessary to protect public safety, order, health, or morals, or the fundamental rights and freedom of others. End of quote. And it is also sometimes backed by Article 20, Paragraph 2 of the Pact, the same Pact, which require, I quote again, "Any advocacy of national, racial, or religious hatred that constitutes incitement to discrimination, hostility, or violence shall be prohibited by law." End of quote. On this issue, and on blasphemy law, The Human Rights Committee, which monitors the implementation of this civil and political rights covenant, has been very clear in a general comment on this article. It says, I quote again, prohibition of displays or lack of respect for a religion or other belief system, including blasphemy laws, are incompatible with the covenant, except in the specific circumstances envisaged in Article 20, paragraph 2 of the covenant. Thus, for instance, it would be impermissible for any such law to discriminate in favor of or against one or certain religions or belief systems or their adherents over another, or religious believers over non-believers. Nor would it be permissible for such prohibition to be used to prevent or punish criticism of religion leaders or commentary on religious doctrine and tenets of faith. This is very clear. The Human Rights Committee take a very strong position. Unfortunately, as I said before, we still have 105 states who do have blasphemy provision. So I would like to propose another angle to look at it. Through religious minority protection. My task from the Human Rights Council is to deal with minorities, including religious minorities, and I think it offers another angle. So actually, Article 27 of the same International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights says, I quote, in those states in which ethnic, religious, or linguistic minority exist, persons belonging to such minorities shall not be denied the right, in community with the other members of their group, to enjoy their own culture, to profess and practice their own religion, or to use their own language. Shall not be denied the right. That's a different angle, and this is important. Actually, this creates a positive obligation for the state. So clearly, it's not only freedom, but it's clearly a right. And in its comment on this article, the Human Rights Committee said, I quote again, although Article 27 is expressed in negative terms, that article, nevertheless, does recognize the existence of a right and requires that it shall not be denied. Consequently, a state party is under an obligation to ensure that the existence and the exercise of this right are protected against the denial or violation. Positive measures of protections are therefore required not only against the acts of the state party itself, whether through its legislative, judicial, or administrative authorities, but also against the acts of other persons within the state party. Again, this is very clear. The Human Rights Committees have a clear position, both as regards freedom of religion and belief and as regards minority protection. And the 1992 Declaration on the Right of Persons Belonging to National or Ethnic, Religious and Linguistic Minorities, that has been adopted by the UN General Assembly, says very clearly in its first article that, I quote again, states shall protect the existence and the national or ethnic, cultural, religious, and linguistic identity of minorities within their respective territories and shall encourage conditions for the promotion of that identity. And the second paragraph of this Article 1 says, states shall adopt appropriate legislative and other measures to achieve those ends. So it is clear, it's not only freedom, it has to be protected. And naturally, it's not for the dominant religion that this is written. It is for those minoritized religion that risk being impeached to properly be practiced by the believer. And actually, if you look again at Article 18 of the same ICCPR, paragraph 2 of this ICCPR Article 18 says, I quote again, no one shall be subject to coercion which would impair his freedom to have or to adopt a religion or belief of his choice. Coercion. Again, these blasphemy laws are coercion against the freedom of religion and belief. So, even if some of those laws may not be discriminatory through their content, we know the chilling effect it may have on minority religion in society as a whole. And this is why it is important to find ways to move forward in suppressing these blasphemy laws. Working on these questions, and I will make it short because I see time is getting short, the Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights has convened a series of expert meetings in 2011, which led in 2012 to the adoption of, I quote, the Rabat Plan of Action on the Prohibition of Advocacy of National, Racial, or Religious Hatred that constitutes incitement to discrimination, hostility, or violence. And very clearly, in the conclusion of this Rabat Plan of Action, the prohibition of blasphemy law is also mentioned. And among other things, this plan of action states, and I quote, "It is often purported that freedom of expression and freedom of religions or belief are in a tense relationship or even contradictory. In reality, they are mutually dependent and reinforcing. The freedom to exercise or not to exercise one's religion or belief cannot exist if the freedom of expression is not respected, as free public discourse depends on the respect for the diversity of convictions which people may have. Likewise, freedom of expression is essential to creating an environment in which constructive discussion about religious matters could be held. Indeed, free and critical thinking in open debate is the soundest way to probe whether religious interpretation adhere to or distort the original values that underpin religious belief." I think I will stop there, and I'll be happy to answer questions. Thank you.